Terran. It is Mousesport's HeRoMaRinE.
And in the top right, we do have the blue Zerg, Dark. Talon Esports.
Yeah, and I feel like this matchup is the first one today that kind of goes against the trend. Like Maru, obviously a really strong late game player. And Spirit, he's a guy that really aspires to be late game, so it was kind of like a similar thing. You had Gumiho Estrella, both out of the box, going up against each other. Oliveira Beyond, also Raging Bulls. Here, on the other hand, you tell people to watch like a very standard Terran. HeRoMaRinE, he fits the bill on all fronts. Whereas Dark, he is outside the box. He is not your standard Zerg by any means. So this is the first real clash of like defender versus aggressor in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, you know, and I think I totally agree with you. You know, HeRoMaRinE usually is the standard guy to look at. Like, oh, that's how you play 3CC or a solid 2-base 1-1-1 or something. But we actually have something different happening right now. It's a 2-Rax opener, which isn't uncommon, guys, but the way that it's going to happen on this map is a little bit different. You don't quite have the same type of map structure where it just goes into the front of your natural, because your natural is actually in your main, and that's going to complicate factors for the Zerg as well. We've seen this before. We know that it can be bad for the Zerg to have to deal with this, the way that the map is designed, but then we also saw Sarah with that 6 around in the Reapers in the last tournament. So let's pay close attention to how much damage HeRoMaRinE can do with what isn't really a dedicated opener, guys, but does want to do something in terms of making Dark uncomfortable or getting a couple of drones.
Yeah, I like where he's put that second barracks, by the way. It's like not in the wall, so they will come across in a very different path. So that overload that you initially have, you'd see this and you'd be like, oh, it's fairly standard, right? Like, if I do float over to the natural, which maybe I will do, but he's not going to do that, actually. So far, totally unaware. First Reaper pops across, you can be like, oh, okay. But he hasn't got gas here, Zombie Grub. Like, fighting this without link speed, I mean, it's one of those maps where getting into the main base is going to be tricky, but you got to remember the Zerg economy's better on this map.
Right, yeah, and it's very similar, in fact, to that Serral game, where that was potentially a troublesome point, but then the micro was just so clutch. I mean, you did see a second supply depot that was very fast. We might have had some idea or just really expected it on this map to complicate factors in the early game. Because Dark, he should be coming in thinking he is the favorite to win, not just because he's confident, but because he actually is. History absolutely proves it. So to do just the, I guess, a safe opener and expect some type of harassment early on, calling this safe sounds a little weird again because that speed is missing, but I think you can actually kind of just dodge and weave enough that eventually you're fine, and your third hatch is up. You weren't just stuck in your 2 bases, which is one of the problems with dealing with 2-Rax. If you don't get that drone out to your 3rd base and start to establish that base, Reapers could kill it.
Absolutely could. He started off with a cancel on the larvae over here, but will maybe turn this into a spore or an extractor. Does just about get it. Was it just 2 Reapers from HeRoMaRinE, by the way?
Yeah.
Marine production, and behind this, it will be a 3rd CC behind it, and going into kind of like a 2-1-1, which I don't hate at all. I mean, post-youth, it is not your ordinary map, as you pointed out. An in-base, second base that will mine out quicker with those gold minerals, but with Terran as well, you do actually get a big boost in your economy early on, which you often don't really get to do against Zerg.
Yeah. It's been interesting watching the players over the last few weeks because some of them continued not to really care about showing off publicly. They're playing in tons of online cups. HeRoMaRinE was one of the guys who stopped appearing, actually. So I was hoping he would have something really clever. Oh, this is kind of clever. I feel like he has been studying Beyond with this type of move. Overlord is going to go down, but not going to be able to find much more than that. So the reason I brought that up, 6 Overlords, by the way, but the reason I brought that up is that he actually was playing so much not Roach the last couple of weeks, and I was wondering if he was hiding it for this tournament. Kind of seems like the confirmation here as he goes right into Roach.
I mean, he's very good about these busts, right? Like the big 1-1 timings and things like that. Probably will see what Pig talked about, maybe an Evo or 2 coming up, and it's immediately what he does. So it looks like he will be trying to line up some big timing here. But all things said and done, Reyno's one of the players that says, I never go Roaches against Gabe. Like, Gabe's one of the best at reading a game, reading a situation, being like, this is how I defend against that stuff. But the way that Dark plays, it's just so unusual. Like, you see this 4th base going down at the gold. It isn't super risque, so to speak, but still a little bit like he has to do something with it after, or rather, he's forcing HeRoMaRinE to have to do something, which is not what you want to be doing if you're HeRoMaRinE, being forced to play like this.
Yeah, you don't want to move into someone who's going for a potential 1-1 roach all in. Like, there are times like now, of course, where you are fine to do this, but then the numbers grow and your better worry is actually just defending back at home. But that is a solid start right there. Reaper's going to get into the main base and try and get a confirmation on what the technology is.
No link speed.
Yeah, and then also, like, is he getting an infestation pit would be the next thing to scout. He's going to have to do something else besides that Reaper that did just go down.
Yeah, and I mean, there is... Wait, look where Gabe has taken his third, by the way, like on that high ground, or rather on the low ground, but that's kind of a nice spot to be able to put tanks on the high ground if you do want to defend it against big Roach Flood, which he sees the Roaches now. He's denied this fourth base twice. As far as openings go, definitely not a bad one for Gabe.
We actually have Metabolic Boost starting for Dark, almost as he scouts the third CC placement. I was kind of figuring he was going to go for a 1-1 Roach attack. I mean, just no hurry whatsoever against the Infestation Pit, but adding speed, it looks a little odd, but you do reinforce faster, obviously, with Speedlings. So that's probably what he's thinking of, because he absolutely is not adding on technology right now. This is what HeRoMaRinE really has to track. He has to keep the pulse on the Zerg to figure out if he's really all-inning me, if he's, you know, double all-inning me as the game goes on, or if he's trying to move over into something else. And it's definitely going to be an attack. Dark's fourth base been canceled twice, finally actually on the way. It's going to be a little jump-off point as well to get him closer to HeRoMaRiNE's third. But HeRoMaRiNE must have known this was a possibility and is getting prepared to defend against the Roaches.
I like this little choke outside this fourth as well. Like, that makes things a little bit trickier for Dark to move into. Like, I really feel that this third base positioning was a bit wild, but maybe it's going to pan out. But you look at the supply. Like, this is getting to the scariest moment here for HeRoMaRiNE, because that is a lot of Zerg. Yes, he was bunkering up, but the fact that he's moving out right now, and he's got to be so careful. Like, he needs to know where the army's going to come from.
I think he actually did see the Roaches off to the left, but he can't really respond to it super quickly. The tanks will be slightly out of position. The bunkers, absolutely. We're going to get a little bit of a pincer going on here. Dark setting up the surround, taking out the tank with the corrosive bio. One more tank in the mineral line is helping, but it's actually shooting just a single Roach. That is hardly helpful. Does redirect its attention, but the bunker is also going to go down. Dark still holding on to a 60 supply lead as he goes after the last tank here. SCV's falling. Where is the rest of HeRoMaRiNE's army? It seems like it's this meager little bio, and the SCVs are not very good in this straight-up fight.
No, they are not. I mean, Dark's got a lot of it in production and walking across the map. I just saw like 20-odd Roaches or so in production there, but the amount that he still has here denying mining. And remember, he got a fourth base up behind this as well. So, I mean, even though the initial bit gets a little bit deflected here, it's not as if HeRoMaRiNE walks away from that, you know, unbruised, unscathed. I mean, they both lost a lot. But, I mean, Dark was definitely hoping to just kill HeRoMaRiNE and getting him out of this game with that attack.
Yeah, a couple of tanks actually popping out with that little bit of bio and just enough SCVs to cover has helped tremendously. Right now, it's great to see that he actually has tanks. That would be the next worry, is that the next all-in would come, and then you would actually have, you know, one tank, I suppose, would have built. But two tanks working on a third, or maybe that's even a fourth. That is great. But my concern actually now is the medevac energy. The medevac energy is going to be extremely low for the next fight, especially if you're going to try and like poke or anything as you move out. So I really want to keep an eye on that. They've regened a little bit. We're consistently making them, and when you can't afford it as well, there's that little poke out. Going to catch a couple of corrosive Ravagers and dodge the corrosive Biles, obviously. I think it's a good read. That's a good poke, but once again, Dark coming in from the left side.
He is, and this base is kind of surrounded here. I mean, the three tanks are lovely positioned here. I mean, keeping the army busy on one side, dealing with it on the other. This is actually not the greatest fight for Dark, and these tanks, they're all living for a long time. That's just squishy Ravagers left. I think HeRoMaRiNE might be able to defend this.
I think so, absolutely. Dark had so many of the vulnerable units involved. I mean, he had so many, but they also just, they could not give quite as good as they could get. And HeRoMaRiNE is looking like he's on a low supply, and yes, a lot of his army is in those medevacs, but you really do need a big supply gap when you're playing with Roaches, guys. So when you see it get to that little condensed, unless the Terran is fully broken, you do figure those reinforcements going to kick in, Defender's Advantage will kick in, and that has happened. And now I believe the question for Dark is, do I move on? Because my second attack that included Lings this time was kind of clever. That didn't work. Time to move on, perhaps. How do I play a macro game?
Like, Dark, I'm not sure he needs to play the macro game, you know? Like, I feel what he's doing here, just getting to go, because there's a few things that he's been doing behind this. 5th base already up. The creep spread is actually really good to see how aggressive he's been. He's got the upgrades coming online, but he's been absolutely obliterating the tank count every time. So the fact that he's going in again, I don't hate it by any means, because he has dealt with those tanks time and time again, and HeRoMaRinE is just forced to pull again.
Yeah, the tank count not helping as much. Bio left over, and now it's once again just the Ravagers, and they are vulnerable. They're going to try and buy some time across the Bio, wait for those reinforcements. The SCVs once again having to be pulled in there. 14 of them go down, and Dark might have called it right. You might have called it right. Just go, go, go. More attacks, more better. And HeRoMaRinE just could not quite keep that 3rd base up and running. He is going to be forced to evacuate. He's got a 4th on the way. Maybe just survival is the plan right now. But he's actually rallying units in here, and that might not be the move right now.
It's such a squishy unit compo that he's got left, right? It's so many Ravagers, but more Roaches joining. He's got Lings being made as well, getting the upgrades on them. He just finished +1 on tanks, so if they do get to siege, they do actually 2-shot the Roaches, which is a big deal. But the amount of damage, it's been done here, Zombie Grove. And I mean, it's 68 drones, which isn't a hell of a lot, but HeRoMaRinE, he just keeps getting absolutely tanked on his, like, economically. I want to see what his main base and natural are like right now, because they have got to be running quite dry at this point with how many mules he's been having to use. And yeah, it is not quite it. It's not the situation you want to be in as a Terran.
I think he made an accidental cyclone. Maybe he canceled it at the last second, but it's a little awkward. Dark dominating in the supply. Also going to go ahead and foolproof the future by the looks of things. Got +1 melee on the way, as well as the infestation pit. Liberator harassment is nice to see, but what about that gigantic army in front of your base? The tank's not able to shoot in every direction, and that is going to be it. Dark just absolutely relentless. Does not. He knows what he wants to do, and he's going to execute the plan, and he's just going to overpower you. He's got such a right hook.
Yeah, there's one thing that I really liked about the position of that 3rd initially was, like, those rocks by the Xel'Naga, getting through that choke is actually kind of difficult, and you saw him put up bunkers and try to fight there. But Dark, multiple times in a row, like, he did the same thing, right? Where it's like, huge army comes around the left side of the map, starts dealing with him, and it's just, it worked once, might as well do it again. And HeRoMaRinE actually put up a decent fight against that, because it's one of those things where I thought maybe some tanks on the high ground would have been good, you know, trying to get vision is a problematic, and then, but he didn't do that, and Dark just, he just went and did Dark things, didn't he? And he's just so good at that.
I do wonder where his, you know, because he lost the tanks here. This is the first setup we have on screen. We'll see in a second. But yeah, the first setup, you know, he gets broken, kind of, like loses bunkers, loses his tanks, but then 2 tanks arrive, and I'm like, were those just out of position? Because he definitely wasn't building 2 tanks at the time. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to as we see, again, the defense being broken down. It did last a decent amount of time for what ended up being a surprise. I mean, Dark actually going all the way around to get the surround was a nice touch. But this is the moment that I think I'm talking about. I guess he had one maybe in the main. The second one pops out right now, and then he brings it forward at some point. Yeah, I mean, I think one on the high ground would have helped, but yeah, actually keeping this 3rd CC on location would always be a question if you were just depending on tanks on the high ground.
And one big thing that's missing here for HeRoMaRinE, by the way, that whole fight was concussive shells. Like, it really helps a lot for just stopping the Roaches from getting in the positions that they want to be, slows everything down. I think he's even missing it for this fight as well. So this is, that's a really cheap upgrade. That's 50-50, and that can help you so much and make these Roaches way worse off creep. So a few mistakes by HeRoMaRinE there for sure, but first game of the series, you're up against an absolute beast in Dark. Even if other people don't consider him the favorite, he's still a top 5 competitor here, and he thinks he's the favorite. He's going to play very, very confidently against you. And yeah, I mean, some of these wraparounds here, these tanks stood no chance.
Yeah. 100 was absolutely missing. Stopping the army from getting as fast on top of your tanks, that matters. You know, this could potentially have been a game of inches, because again, that first hold can look really ugly, but then the medevac energy regains, the count goes up, the Marauder count goes up, the upgrades finish is usually a big one as well, and it can absolutely shift momentum, but yeah, it was just a little too much, and gotta wonder how many Marauder slows could have actually impacted it, but we'll never know as we are getting more set onto the second game. Dark coming out swinging, proving that he is here to make a statement, and while we gave HeRoMaRinE some credit, it is historically very unfavored for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think most Terrans are maybe unfavored against Dark just because of his weird playstyle.
Yeah, maybe. I can check the stats on that.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, he obviously has epic battles with Maru throughout time.
Right.
Epic battles with TY throughout time, but Dark is one guy that just makes it weird, you know? And when he's got builds like this in his repertoire that, you know, when you see roaches, you're like, oh, it can come, right? It can come. Doesn't make it any easier to hold when you know it's coming, especially when it's in the hands of someone like Dark.
Kind of surprised to see Dynasty here, but here we spawn on Dynasty. Top right for Mouse, he is HeRoMaRinE.
And spawning over on the bottom left-hand side, as our blue Zerg, it is Dark. Gotta whip out the pigism when you say Dark, you know. Dark. Yeah. But I'm with you. I'm surprised to see Dynasty here. There is one game in particular I remember. I don't know if Lambo's in the green room right now, but it was HeRoMaRinE against Lambo quite some time ago. Quite an important matchup, and they played here, and HeRoMaRinE went the fastest 3cc, like the fastest. So put the third on the location, then did a massive 8 racks push, and it was just like, how do you hold this as Zerg? Like, I literally don't know. And he's going to do something very similar this game. So I think it's just going to be like a 3cc play, massive, massive Marine Flood, and it's so incredibly hard to stop. I'm kind of wondering what Dark did veto.
Yeah. Might be able to double check that later, but this is a command center first, guys, so it could very well be this extreme greed, hoping to get away with it, and then having that powerful 8 racks. I mean, you might know it's on the way, but it is tough. It looks like Dark's just checking around, actually, for...
Proxy 2 racks is what he's kind of guessing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was in his corner before this game, I'd be like, you don't have to worry about that against Gabe, but you never know with Gabe.
Yeah.
Because, you know, 99.9% of his games, he doesn't do it, but then I've definitely seen him whip out like a 2-3 racks where he does like a bunker wall off, and it's just like, that was so un-Gabe that it's kind of Gabe at the same time. But yeah, he's going to go for the 2 racks after this. I still think it's going to be a very quick third, because I mean, there's almost no reason not to these days.
Right. The 2 base attacks from Terran just aren't that impressive.
Especially on a map of this size.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Do you want to know what the win rate is for Terran versus Zerg on this map?
On this map?
Terran? Do you want to guess?
Okay, and this is just high-level play, yeah?
Well, it's Wikipedia stats. I think it's mostly high-level play.
And normally we go by like 50-50 being the closest.
Right.
Okay, I'd easily guess like 70% for Terran.
You're almost exactly right. 69%.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as far as maps go, this, and granted, I haven't played professionally on this map, but I've still played this map quite a bit. I feel it's, like, almost unlosable, you know? Like, it's so good. And, like, that takes a lot for a Terran to admit that, Zombie Grub. It really does. But it's amazing. Like, Zerg are really forced into playing a way where it's like, the Terran can do whatever they want, but they just have a way better economy than normal. Like, it's such a strange map, and trying to stop the Terran from mining on that gold, it's so much easier for them to do it than you. It's so tricky.
Yeah, I gotta applaud Dark for being able to play on it, basically. I think he does play on it, too. I'm not sure this is a super rare occurrence for him. In general, for Zerg it is, but... And we're going to see what his mindset is for the game. We have a very standard opener right now, so we're not really seeing what he's thinking, but he does take the middle base as his third. Obviously, he would know that HeRoMaRinE took that back natural with the gold. He doesn't know what the build is yet. I believe he hasn't really gotten scouting much of that at all. Maybe he did see the command center timing. He's going to go roaches once more. Obviously, guys, Dark was known for roaches for so long. So when I mentioned that for the last couple of weeks he was hiding it, you can only hide it so much, but there must have been a reason just to kind of maybe throw someone off. So there's maybe a little more doubt in Hero's mind that he's always going roaches.
Yeah, I mean, when you're intrinsically a roach, like you always... All paths lead to Rome, right? Like, he's going to go back to it at some point. He's so good. But he can do the Mutalist stuff as well, even though it's very out of fashion. He can play Ling Bane. I still think that Gabe's play this game, it's not what I saw from him last time. It was very much the normal, like, 1 racks expand on the low ground, but then 1 racks, expand in the back on the gold as well. So this is definitely going to be kind of bringing back old school, like a 2-1-1 after it.
Yes,
but with the CC first. It's unusual, and it could maybe catch off guard, but Dark skipped Link Speed again. By the way, he's getting Burrow, like way before...
Tunneling Claws would be available.
Yeah, way before. And does he even have like Roach Speed? Yeah, I'm not sure at this point. He can't.
Yeah, he's no lair. This is so interesting, guys. So first of all, I think HeRoMaRinE like I said that he's kind of like, it looks like he's been studying Bjorn. I'm going to say that again, because Bjorn has brought back his 2-1-1 off of a command center first. And he kind of divides, like, you know, depending on what he sees, how he plays it. He can play very aggressive. He does still get a third, as HeRoMaRinE is. Or he actually even has a couple of games versus Dark where he ended up just super turtling and only harassing with the first 2 medevacs. So we might be seeing a little bit of that. It does change up the pacing of what the Zerg expects, and it has caught some of them off guard. But typically when it comes to the 2-on-1, it's a very understood build. You know how to defend against it and how you can cut corners.
I wonder if he was hoping to do some burrow stuff behind that gold so he can just keep regenning. But either way, he's going to use burrow here in this fight, which is annoying. He's going to keep some of these roaches alive. And right now he is deflecting this little bit of pressure, but you know, it's going to go on for a while. You don't have speed to work with. Lair's going to finish up very soon. The roach count's getting pretty high. And he's doing a good job with his burrow micro zombie growth. This is quite cute by him.
Yeah, he did. I think he missed a transfuse because of it, so it's like give and take. But yeah, no, that's a great idea. The burrow play, just in general, we know it's obnoxious. You might have gone up against a couple of people on ladder who are obsessed with it. And in professional play, very not common. And even if it was buff tunneling claws, that would also be not very common. But it's a kind of a cool idea to abuse that back base, and then eventually maybe you do get tunneling claws, and you are just the obnoxious roach player that kind of goes everywhere with even Nidus Worms later on. Oh boy. That might be Dark's eventual plan. It was kind of revealed. I would expect HeRoMaRinE did pay attention and see in burrow, right? So he should have at least a missile turret in the common entry points to his base. Just again, tunneling claws finishes. That is a graphical upgrade, so I'm sure he's also just paying attention to the roaches.
Yeah, those little roaches get little spikes on their backs, and you know, the one that's harder to see is the little bit of shroud moving behind them, which is so difficult, but especially in high intensity situations and a new setup that you're not used to. Back at home, maybe you can be like, oh no, I spot that every time, but here, lights being everywhere. But so far, HeRoMaRine's done a good job of just making Dark very honest about how many drones he's getting out. Like, you look at that, 57 to 59, even though not many drones have fallen.
This is so similar to a Dark Beyond game, actually. It wasn't on this map at all, but as we see right now, that has to be canceled. Sorry, Dark. He is getting some SCV damage, apparently, so a little tit for tat. Technically even in his favor because he saved the drone, too. So, yeah, the money's not too bad for Dark. But what happened was that Bjorn opened up 2-on-1, applied a little bit of aggression, and Dark was like, wow, he's being really aggressive. I'm kind of worried here. He stayed on a low drone count, which he is a master of. He's very comfortable, weirdly enough, there. And then eventually, Bjorn just, like, didn't find any type of power push. And it went into the longest late game where he made swarm hosts. Yeah, versus late game bio. Frankly, there was a lot of tanks, but still. Very reminiscent of that, because it seems like, once again, Dark is like, okay, I gotta be careful. What the heck are you doing? What the heck are you doing? Oh, okay, I think I understand. Here's a bunch of drones.
I wonder how many kills that tank has, because I think that's where the SCVs were falling. Okay, just one so far. So SCVs were falling somewhere, don't know exactly where. I like that he's taken this base on the other side, so we'll be able to get the rich gas going with that gold base. So that's going to be a massive, I want to say an issue for HeRoMaRiNE that he has to kind of really respect, but delaying it, dealing damage on the left side. Oh, this is way closer than the first game.
Right, yeah. I mean, we haven't seen too much yet, but like they're both setting themselves into somewhat prime positions. Dark's gonna get 2-2, speed on his Lings. He's getting the Hydra upgrades. Eventually, Lurker Den I do expect, as the Hive is on the way now too. I think maybe his, you know, I haven't seen his scouting too much, but one of the first things you still would worry about was being 8 racks, how much pressure you're gonna be under. And we are still on 3 bases for HeRoMaRiNE, so I believe that is exactly what he did. Yeah, no 4th CC.
I still feel that none of this went quite as well for HeRoMaRiNE as he wanted it to.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of it comes down to what Pig said, where Dark is greedy. Like, he took, this is 2 games in a row where he's just been 3 hatcheries before getting any sort of gas and just going into roaches, and he looked pretty damn safe doing it, which is really cool. But now he's getting to this blob, like this massive blob, which will have to deal with a huge number of bio, decently upgraded bio as well, and a lot of tanks behind it. Right now, HeRoMaRiNE's army is significantly stronger. So Dark, he's going to try and buy time and stop this from moving out. He's got 17 Hydras queued up right now.
Yeah, you know, as much as HeRoMaRiNE might not have gotten his best plan here executed, I don't think Dark did either. They may have tripped each other up a little bit, but I think we kind of came into this thinking the onus was on the Zerg to figure out how to play this map, and Dark seems to be in a similar position to many other Zergs, which is in a very difficult position to defend against the 8 racks with tanks sieged up. He is forced to retreat, giving up that base, and he's not mining from the top left quite yet either. Oh no, Ravager's on the front, getting taken down. More Hydras coming in. Roaches coming on the front line as well to be that tankiness. But speaking of tanks, they do siege up a little late. And a good little split there from Dark as well to maximize his potential dealing with those tanks. That looked like it was extremely scary. And then just, no, Dark was winning. What are you talking about?
Some clutch lings come in there and a lot of firepower from the Hydras as well. And I mean, right now, this isn't a creep spot. That gold base opened up now. Like, that provides Dark another path of attack, which, you know, isn't often available to you. But the fact that he's surviving here, eliminating the tank count entirely, HeRoMaRiNE's going to that pure-esque play where you're really all in on 3 bases right now. Going for the Liberators, but Dark with so
GG.
much.
Wow.
Wow.
I think he got overconfident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was not playing with his tanks for so much of that, and they were basically isolated by that end.
And the fight ended as 2-2 was like 10 seconds away.
Ah, yeah.
Which is really big. Like, he really felt he had to do something. Leaving those tanks behind, not doing anything, that's such a big part of your army against all these range units that clump up very, very hardcore. But I do think the play that he went for, CC first on the low ground, on the gold, I feel that's not as scary as one Rax taking your normal base, then taking the back base where you put your third, where very often when you go for those kind of builds, you've got third on the high ground just waiting to pop on over. There it's just on location, and it's so damn safe. Like, I really feel that that build is the one that Zergs find way scarier in this matchup.
Yeah, than the build that we saw. Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I'm not going to blame that on his loss here. I definitely think he was in a good position. We had a lot of the vulnerable units, the only vulnerable units were on the field. Ravagers and Hydras for this second, right? Roaches were coming in to try and help, but the bio had gotten so detached from the tanks that they really only were involved in the fight towards the tail end.
Yeah, I mean, this fight was a good example, and then you see the 2-2, you know? Like, 2-2 was moments away from being done. I don't think Gabe had to be that aggressive, because he could have taken out this gold base in the bottom, which would have been great already, but he was pushing for the throat. That was one of those times where it's like, if I felt what Gabe was feeling, you'd probably feel the BPM going through the roof, you know, where it's like, oh, I've got him, I've got him. And you just go. And, like, if he could look at that again, be like, you know what? I had a pretty good position there, pretty good hold, because all those tanks in that fight with those Marines, when the upgrades come online too, it's going to be faster than Dark's 2-2. I think he would have been looking pretty all right there.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I also wonder if Dark was a little surprised by how that was broken. You know, he had confidence in his macro, which is great, but typically when you see that hive come up, it's kind of like a race to the Viper. Not just getting it, but then getting the energy on it, and then that's how you deal with the tanks. So he was probably panicked a little bit. He knows the power of an 8 Rax, but it was a pretty fatal mistake, I think, on the actual battle. HeRoMaRiNE, he's coming out with some good ideas. He's trying to really mix things up as well, but Dark is proven to just be unflappable. You know, he doesn't care.
I can almost see it in HeRoMaRiNE's body language. It's like, wow, if I don't win on that map, winning any other map is going to be significantly harder. And like Dark, just, you know, unfaltering in his posture and stuff. And yeah, HeRoMaRiNE looking a little bit deflated, which sucks for him, because going into Alcyone here for the 3rd map, spawning over on the top right-hand side, the red Terran, it is Big Gabe.
And in the bottom left, as the blue Zerg up 2-0, bringing some dad energy into the tournament, he is Dark.
Dad gamers unite.
Dad gamers unite, exactly.
Yeah, you know, you think of the normal dad gamer, and it's like, nice and slow and methodical and blah, blah, blah. And then you bring Dark to the table. It's just like, he's a true Giga Chad dad.
He's absolutely the dad who's like a really nice, like affable person, but then someone goes after his kid and he just like turns into the Hulk.
Yeah.
Except,
or like Liam Neeson type thing,
oh,
you know?
I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna kill you. Yeah, exactly.
I would not mess with Dark in an alleyway ever.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah, he's gonna
Even though I'm a good like head higher than him, like he's got the
No,
the
he's actually scary. I think we get these guys in a boxing ring, I think he wins.
Absolutely. Totally. Although Gabe, he's had times where he's looked pretty big as well, to be fair. In fact, they were kind of similar in stature for a little bit of time, but Gabe's definitely slimmed down a lot, but that's all by the by. Winning on that map previously, that's a big deal for Dark, and I don't think he'll be able to get away with that every time in this tournament. He's going to go up against a lot of really good Terrans, most likely. But yeah, definitely a sigh of relief for him, because getting, like, HeRoMaRiNE, if he gets one map on the board, you don't know what can happen from that point. Like, that's a big boost of confidence. And if there's anything that Dark has on his side, is the fact that he oozes confidence, and giving his opponent even a little inch kind of thing, that can really throw off the flow of the game for him.
Yeah. Well, momentum certainly on Dark's side. HeRoMaRinE is going to be feeling maybe a little squished, kind of just like, what can I actually do here? It's going to go back to some really standard stuff. 1 racks, expand, perhaps into that 3rd CC, and perhaps into the 8 racks, because, you know, we just don't see Dynasty in this matchup too often, so it's not even, you don't even have to explain it would be good for an 8 racks. Alcyone we do see, and it is an 8 racks map that has proven to be a struggle for a lot of Zergs to defend. But it's maybe lost a little bit of its magic, almost invincibility. It seemed like it was maybe too good for a little while. But I think I've seen more Zergs actually handle it. But it's all about, I feel, the pounce. That's what we saw with Oliveira and Dallas. He just pounced when the Zerg was getting ready, but not quite.
Yeah, and I mean, Oliveira has that killer instinct too, right? Like, if he can, he will. And this is the kind of build that I wanted to see from Gabe on the previous map, but, you know, he's going to pull out here. It's very, very good. You know, a lot of Terrans, they really turned away from just double gas openings, 2cc, like a long time ago. This far more standard, really gets to test yourself against the Zerg, but the way that Dark's been opening up, like, really forgoing Zergling speed entirely, and just being mega greedy with the 3 bases. Like, this is obviously punishable by some kind of 2 racks plays, but it's not really in HeRoMaRiNE's repertoire, and he's opened up double Cyclone, whether that's for Zerg or rather Overlord hunting. I'm not entirely sure with this one, but it's interesting.
Yeah, we saw this be a thing.
He's going to do mech, isn't he, maybe?
Oh, okay, so yeah, first of all, he has been meching. He has been trying mech on ladder on his stream, guys, so we could see that. It is not exactly the mass Cyclone I think that we are thinking of, but also the double Cyclone opener into Hellions is still kind of a thing. And it does get the Overlords initially up against someone who doesn't have Speedlings. You don't have that weakness Cyclones have that they would need the Hellions to help out with. And so either he is going to go mech, and that's why he's building 2 additional Cyclones, or he's like, I can really take advantage of this lack of speed. Yeah,
absolutely. And it isn't going to be mech. It is going to be 4 Cyclones, though. Might be able to get another pick off on the map. Very far forward, might I add, but maybe not even just that. Oh, keeps it alive, just getting it out of vision there. The Queens were there, prepped up as well. But it will be going into regular bio behind it, but 4 Cyclones, that's quite a decent investment. And Cyclones, they're one of those units, like many Terran units, they kind of fall off a bit. They're not as good as the game goes on. So Dark seeing this, I think he's probably already like, well, I'm not going to take damage from this. I'm feeling pretty good. And he goes for the Zergling speed way earlier this time. Ooh, this could be very aggressive from him, actually.
He does like to all in on this map. You know, and it's kind of, it makes sense because either you win or you lose, but you don't have to deal with the 8 racks.
Yeah, so. And it's also one of those things that if you do see this many Cyclones, you know that's so much gas spent into that isn't getting the tanks afterwards. Excuse me. And you've got the reactor on the factory, not on tank production as well. This could very much be a very quick game, and I'm paying close attention to whether he's even going to go for a lair, because I doubt it. And yeah, when you start getting Ravagers kind of before you need them almost, yeah, this is going to be very, very quick from Dark.
Yeah, not really a wall up either, right? Maybe not anticipating the fast speed in general, much less the entire all-in. Dark also very good with keeping his speedlings somewhere else so that the Terran thinks, oh, maybe the Roaches are just like a little pokey poke, and then boom, suddenly all the speedlings as well. He might not have to do that this time. I'm not sure he actually has to be clever about this. He might just be able to just run in there and kill him.
I think so. Like, he morphed these Roaches very far forward, and boom, he's getting the pounce, and Big Gabe, you saw the face there, looking a little bit tense, and this is very surprising from Dark, and that's going to be a lot of bios going down. The Marines, they don't even have stim yet, they don't have anything. That's so many upgrades coming in that aren't going to be here for this fight, and even if Dark doesn't kill him, which he absolutely is, by the way, I mean, it's just a bad situation. 3rd is landed and stuff, but HeRoMaRiNE, oh my goodness, Dark doing Dark things.
We're seeing some kick-ass strategies in these series, you know, the Oliveira Banshee, but then this, thinking that HeRoMaRiNE would eventually try and take advantage of the lack of link speed opener, and then just being like, aha, I can still actually get this for this all-in, and you wouldn't expect that, is it? Actually, very cool stuff. Dark trying to make a statement here. He is one of the favorites. He wants to be one of the favorites to win this tournament, and he just 3-0'd HeRoMaRiNE in every fashion imaginable, right? Like, he did the all-in, he did the defense, he did the macro game,